evenings to join us for the kickoff. This is a really exciting transit project. It will provide, for the first time, a high-quality transit connection between Ramona, Poway, and then the Sabre Springs Transit Center, which really ultimately provides that connection into the regional transit network. And we've been doing a lot of outreach over the last couple of years for both the San Vicente Multimodal Corridor Plan, the CMCP, which you may have heard about, and our 2025 regional plan, which is that long-range plan for transportation in the region. And we've heard loud and clear from the community that this transit connection is really critical. It's really important for so many people. So I'm happy to say that we heard you, and this project is not only added into the 2025 regional plan, but the SANDAG board also allocated funding to start planning this route, which is what we're here to do tonight. This will be the first rural express bus route of its kind in the region, but not the only one. The draft regional plan also includes much more rural transit service for our unincorporated communities throughout the region. I also want to set some expectations. We currently only have funding to do the planning, but we are actively seeking grants and other funding opportunities to, go through the next stages of the work in partnership with MTS, the transit operator. I also want to share that we're looking for near-term bus solutions versus longer-term rapid solutions that might require more capital infrastructure, a little bit more cost and time to implement, because we've heard from you that you need solutions now. So tonight, Mimi, who is the project manager for the RAPID project on our planning team, and Ali, who kicked things off tonight and leads the outreach, will go over the route, the project timeline. We want to get your feedback and ideas on, popular destinations that will really help the team identify where the stops need to go and where exactly the route should go. This is the first of many conversations we'll be having with you. It's not your only opportunity to participate. We look forward to partnering with you throughout this project all along the way. I know not everyone can attend public meetings. Ali mentioned that we're going to post this later, but we're also going to be launching a public survey, and we'll share more information about that at the end of the meeting. But we would very much appreciate your help getting the word out about that survey, because we want to hear from everyone. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ali and the team to kick things off. The presentation is relatively short because we want to have a lot of opportunity for Q&A at the end. Thank you all again for being here.
Thanks, Antoinette. And just so we know the agenda for today, first we're going to talk about the background of the project. We're going to learn more about the plan for the project, its timeline, hear from you, and then at the end we'll have some opportunities for questions as well. Speaking of questions, you don't have to wait till the end of the presentation. If you have a question, you can feel free to drop it in the Q&A box or the chat, which you can find by clicking either the conversation bubbles at the bottom of your screen. And we'll try to answer shorter questions as we see them, but all other questions we can answer and the chunk of time that we set aside at the end. And if we don't get to all of them, we'll write up those answers for you after the call and send a follow-up email to everyone soon. So for anyone who hasn't connected with us before, we wanted to explain really quickly, what is SANDAG? We are the regional transportation planning agency that works for you. What does that mean? You pay taxes. The federal and state government send some of that funding back to the region through us so that we can help plan our transportation system. So that's anything from roads, highways, bike lanes, anything that helps you get around the region. So that could be small things like this bus route, or huge projects like that new border crossing that's being planned in East Otay Mesa. We also build transportation projects of all sizes. That could be quicker things, like when we added bike lanes to El Cajon Boulevard in the city of San Diego, or major construction, like when we extended the Blue Line trolley up to UC San Diego. And while we do all that, we also work on preserving natural resources in the region, and we make sure our work supports a safe and healthy environment, while also providing programs directly to our communities, such as the free public transit program for youth, or things like funding to fix potholes, and also funding for housing programs as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mimi, who can tell you more about our rapid bus projects in general.
Thanks, Ali. So part of what Ali just mentioned, the planning branch of what SANDAG does includes preparing a regional plan and updating that every 4 years. And the regional plan includes projects, programs, and policies. And we're currently working on that draft plan now, the 2025 regional plan. And that includes 35 new rapid routes by 2035. This is what Antoinette mentioned earlier in the opening remarks, is a lot of projects, transit projects happening in this time frame. So we are kicking off 6 of those 35 right now. And then today we'll be talking about one of them. In the next slide, we'll go over what's different about rapid service and how that is different from our local bus routes. One of the main things is that it's faster service. There's fewer stops, and we use more technology and infrastructure to bypass traffic. Rapids also come by more often during daytime hours, and they also have modern stops with digital displays that show the next bus times. So getting into more strategies of how we could make these buses go faster. These are some examples of those technologies and infrastructure. And please keep in mind, every route will be unique. These are only a handful of tools in our toolbox to make these buses a priority on the roads. And we will be working with you, the community members, MTS, City of Poway, Caltrans, County of San Diego, and City of San Diego to identify the right mix of solutions. So these are a few examples on the screen here. Special lanes to allow buses to bypass auto congestion, which is typically combined with transit signal priority or green light priority that allows the bus to enter the intersection before other vehicles. And all-door boarding to allow for people to enter and exit the bus at any doorway instead of only entering through the front. So now I'll hand it over to Allie to do a quick check-in with you all and see who's here.
Yeah, and so we know all of you joined the meeting because you wanted to hear more about Rapid Route 277. So you can see that is the area that we're studying on the map, connecting Poway to Ramona using Highway 67. And we wanted to start with a quick poll to get a sense of who's here. So if we could just launch that first polling question. We just want to know which of these places on the map that you go to often. I'm just waiting for people's responses to trickle in. Great, so it looks like we have a good mix of people who make trips to Ramona, a good mix of people who make trips to Poway, and maybe some others that do not and are listening for other reasons on the call today. Great. And if we could go ahead and share question 2. We're curious to know how you're getting to these places on the map now. Are we driving? Are we ride sharing, transit, biking, walking? And you can select multiple options. Just waiting for everybody to click on that. Thank you. Great. And so it looks like we have a good mix on the call tonight. We have majority of folks, as we probably suspected, driving alone, some people taking ride shares, some people using transit, some biking, and some walking within these areas as well. Well, thank you all that for that feedback. And Mimi now is going to tell you a little bit more background on this project.
So again, as Antoinette had mentioned earlier, we understand that we've come to the community several times for several different projects, and this is what we know as of now, that the community would like better traffic flow on Highway 67 and infrastructure for emergency evacuation, more affordable, reliable, and safe ways to get around, more access to jobs, healthcare, and education, and transportation that supports local businesses. Additionally, we've looked at the data, and on the next slide, we'll show where the travel patterns are. So you can see the blue lines, that's the Ramona travel pattern. And you can see that in the mornings, people from Ramona are traveling northwest and southwest to Escondido, Poway, Miramar, and El Cajon. And then we're seeing people travel back to Ramona from those locations. So given what we've heard and the data, we're kicking off this study for this Rapid 277 route. I'll also note that while we are calling this Rapid 277 now, the number could change, but the concept will not. So we're not tied to this 277 number as of yet. So keep that in mind as well. So an overview of our route here, this white area and the gray area is, blocked out. So we're going to be looking in this white area over the next couple years for potential alignments. The route will start in downtown Ramona and travel south on SR 67 and travel through Poway, west through Poway, along either Scripps Poway Parkway is what we're showing here. Thank you for zooming in. And then ultimately end at Sabre Springs Transit Center on the 15, very west end of this boundary. So this is, again, we understand that there's been other projects along SR 67 as well, including recent infrastructure. So we intend to utilize that new infrastructure for technology advancements as well. And of course, communicate and reach out to you and all of our partner agencies to get feedback on the preferred route alignment. And that's what we'll be aiming to get to at the end of this whole process. And in the next slide, we'll go through the timeline as well. So we talked about this initial concept and planning. We're in this 1 to 2 year time frame right now, studying the area and possible routes and stops. And then after that, depending on funding available, we'll be moving through and finalizing the route and stops and studying the potential environmental impacts. And from there, we'll move into design and construction, which could take 1 to 3 years. All of these are preliminary, and then after that, we would have service starting. And throughout all of those stages, there will be key public engagement to get feedback as well. With that, I'll turn it back over to Ali to walk through what we would like to hear from you today.
Great, thanks, Mimi. And so if we could just launch poll question 3, we are interested in knowing how often people on the call normally use public transit, first of all. Great, and I'm just watching people's responses trickling in. Someone asked the question in the chat, if you're here representing a group of people, you could go ahead and answer just for yourself today. And when we send out the link for the survey, those individuals could also fill out the survey and indicate how often they use transit. Thanks for asking. Great. So it looks like we have a good mix of people on the call. We have some folks using it weekly, some a couple times a month, some a few times a year, and some who don't ever take transit, which is okay and understandable. Okay. Great. And so this was what we came here for today, which we really would like to know your input about which places within the study area get visited by a lot of people on a regular basis, because knowing those destinations that are very popular are going to help us narrow down where the route will go eventually. And finding clusters of popular destinations is probably going to indicate places where we could put possible stops for this route. So just a disclaimer, if you see a place that's highlighted on the map, that doesn't mean necessarily that a bus stop will be there, but if a lot of popular destinations pop up clustered in a particular spot, or if there's a popular destination that we have the data and many people are going there, right, then that might increase the likelihood of a stop being there, and also public input happening later as we come back to you for further outreach in the future. So right now, we have already researched a bunch of these locations that you can see on the map that our studies tell us that many people are going to, but we want you to tell us what's missing. So if we could just launch this polling question now, are there any other major places that people go in Ramona? So when I say major places, right, we want to think spots that have a lot of jobs people are going to, medical centers, big schools, shopping centers. If there's anything missing, if you could go ahead and add that in the short answer. You can say multiple things in the box. Just make sure you separate it with a comma so we can make sure we know what place you're talking about. I'm just giving people a little bit of time to think and drop those in. And don't worry if you have more ideas after the call today. Again, the survey is going to be open until March 12th. So if you forgot something, feel free to go ahead and add that to the survey later as well. Just going to give it maybe 10 more seconds for people to drop in ideas, because I'm still seeing a couple of them come in. Okay, great. Thank you for that. And I think after this call, we'll be able to add those to the larger map that's on the survey. I'm not seeing a way to share everybody's answers to that right now. Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. So the next section of the route we want to talk about is this outdoor recreation area where we have the places that we had already identified as places a lot of people are going to would be the Mount Woodson trailhead or the Iron Mountain trailhead. But if you had any other ideas of major places that a lot of people are going to in this recreation area, please go ahead and drop those in this polling question if we could launch that now. Just waiting to see. Some people still have some ideas trickling in. Okay. Looks like folks hadn't added many more areas. Great. Apparently my coworker can see what you guys are submitting and I can't. I think because she created the meeting. Some folks mentioned the Ramona Grasslands, Barnett Ranch, and some places over in closer to Ramona with movie theaters and bowling alleys. Great, thank you. Okay, so our final question is which popular destinations are missing in Poway? So again, in this particular area, right, thinking about vital destinations that are very popular because they are more essential, right? So people trying to access jobs, schools, medical services, people trying to get their errands done, right? Retail centers. So if we could launch that last question and let us know what's missing in Poway. Great. Still seeing some people submitting answers because I'm sure people have multiple that they're thinking of. Gonna give people like 20 more seconds. Okay. Not seeing any more getting added, but don't worry if you missed one, you can go ahead and add it to the survey after the call today. Great, and my coworker is just gonna send me some of the places that were mentioned. Yeah, so it looks like some folks mentioned the DMV, right? That had come up. The plaza that it's in the intersection of Poway Road and Sabre Springs Parkway. Seniors getting access to their doctor's appointments. The area with 24-hour fitness in the 99-cent store as a couple of options that people had put. But if we want to see everything people are adding to the map, you definitely can check out the link to the survey after that has the map that we'll be adding these to later this week. Great. Okay. And so we really appreciate you sharing your feedback today. And we've seen a number of questions coming through in the chat and in the Q&A that we're going to be answering now. So please drop any other questions that you have into the Q&A box that you have as we're starting to plan these rapid projects. And you can raise your virtual hand as well if you didn't want to just drop it in the chat. So we can field some of these right now.
Before we start too, I wanted to clarify in the timeline that I shared, if we could maybe skip back to that
Sure.
slide. What
to
was shown was very, one step at a time, where most of those rapids that we're planning for will need to completely go through all of that, have a clean end and start to each phase. But we're also looking at a phased approach as well for this route. We're anticipating this route to be fairly straightforward in terms of implementation. So we're looking to see how we can get these buses on the road quicker. So again, I just wanted to make that note that we're looking at phasing opportunities. So it could be that we start rolling out the route, but it's not fully all the stops that we'll anticipate. Maybe it starts with a few stops, and then as more money and funding comes in, we could add more stops. So that's just something that we're considering as well in terms of a phased approach for this route.
Great, thanks for that, Mimi. And so I think I'll start with the questions in the Q&A. Our first question, I'm just leaving the timeline slide up because they had a question that showed the transit possibly being available by 2035. Actually, so they're talking about the first slide that we said 35 new rapid routes in the next decade. Will these routes have dedicated bus lanes, transit signal priority, and dedicated stations? They understand it's case by case, but how many, if any, of the routes will conform to true bus rapid transit design standards?
I can take that one if you'd like, Mimi. You're very much right, Sam. It is kind of a case by case basis, and we're not there yet to know. This one is unique because it's mostly on the 67, and there's probably not as much need for the kind of true BRT infrastructure, but some of the rapids that we're planning will have more of those features, dedicated lanes, TSP, queue jumps, all of those things. So it's really going to depend, and we're starting the early planning now, so we'll be able to answer those questions a little bit later along in the process.
Great. The next question someone had is, how often would this transit line come? Any thoughts of short-term services?
And that's part of what we will be studying. The rapid routes for the region, the frequencies 15-minute headways, if not 10. So we'll be looking to have that time every 10 minutes during peak hours for this route.
Okay, good. And we had another question that was about frequency stop spacing. Do we know service hours yet, or is that also something to be studied, Mimi?
That's also to be studied. Again, we're looking at the peak hours, so morning commuters, evening, weekends. So those are all things that we will be studying. And I would appreciate your input on preference too when we get to that point.
Great. We had another question. Has there been any consideration for this route to service the 10,000 people that live in San Diego Country Estates, which is part of Ramona?
That is something that we can take into consideration as feedback now that we're starting this study. So we don't have an answer for that yet, but that's something, again, that we can look into when we study this route and the needs for the community.
Great. Yeah, that community member had mentioned that there are a lot of young people out there that would like to be able to get to Ramona and beyond without a car. And someone asked if this plan includes widening Route 67, particularly to Poway.
Caltrans is doing an environmental study now that's looking at different roadway improvements on the 67. So that's a separate project, but we're certainly coordinating with Caltrans.
And that involves like some addition of like emergency.
They're looking at a variety of different options, adding general purpose lanes, adding evacuation lanes. So they're doing the environmental analysis now on all of those different alternatives. And I think within the next year or two, there'll be more information available on that project.
Yeah, so definitely, stay in contact with us. Definitely stay involved with Caltrans as well to get updates about that.
Actually, tune into the board meeting on Friday, the SANDAG board meeting, because there is an update from Caltrans on the 67 project.
Oh, great. Fabulous.
The board meeting is live streamed online.
Yeah, and if you can't make it, we do record those board meetings and they are posted on our YouTube. So if you ever can't make it, because they are at kind of during work hours as well. So thank you for that. Another question was, is there any preliminary thinking on how much infrastructure would be built out for this bus?
Yeah, we're at the very beginning of this, so we don't know how much infrastructure will be needed. It's good to know that you're interested in it and we know what to come back with you and what you're interested in and get your feedback on. So we'll keep that in mind as we go through this study. But right now we don't have anything set in stone in terms of how much infrastructure would be needed. Again, going back to that phased approach, if we don't have all the infrastructure ready now, we'll work with what we have to get something started as soon as we can. And then work about, phasing in the rest of the route when we do have that infrastructure ready.
Great. Thanks for that, Mimi. And I'm just taking a look at the comments that we had in the chat as well. Some folks who wanted to submit more activity places so we can make sure we add those to the map as well. We had a question about other transit services out in more unincorporated areas of the county. Someone asked, what are the chances of getting bus service in places like Forest Ranch or Julian, Alpine, Mount Laguna, Hamul, Borrego Springs that don't have MTS bus service yet?
Do you want to take it, Anthony?
Well, we can tag team on this one, Mimi. I think the great news is that the draft 2025 regional plan includes far more rural transit service than we've had in any past plan, and not just your standard kind of typical transit service, but we also have micro transit and kind of community shuttle services in places like Borrego Springs. So perhaps one of the things that we can follow up with after this meeting is the map of the transit network and the what we call flexible fleets, that's micro transit and shuttle services for the county.
Yeah, and right now we have sort of a very dense PDF, but later this spring, hopefully around May, we'll be launching a mapping tool where you can click into the draft regional plan and look at sort of the different projects that are being planned in different areas as well. Just checking other questions that people had. Someone else asked about how often the bus routes would run. We already answered that. And great to hear from the urbanism group in Poway that that you're supportive of the project. So thank you for that. And just looking back at the Q&A, I can answer this question. Someone asked where they can find more information on more of these meetings. That's a great question. You definitely can follow us on social media, or you can subscribe to our SANDAG newsletter. If you go to sandag.org/subscribe, and we're going to put our social media handles on the last slide. So definitely follow us. And if you want specifically more information on meetings like this on the Rapid 277 bus and more opportunities to give your feedback, you can go to sandag.org/rapid 277 and sign up for emails specifically for this project. Yeah. Someone asked, is SANDAG also thinking about connecting this rapid route to a route that might head into Escondido through the 78 highway?
Yeah, so the idea for this route is to terminate at Sabre Springs Transit Center is to provide that connection. That transit center is heavily used, so that could be another way to transfer to another route. So that's something that we'll consider as well. But for the extent of this route that we're looking at Ramona to Poway, but certainly people could transfer at Sabre Springs Transit Center and go elsewhere as well.
Great. I don't know if anyone else had something to add. Okay. I noticed some people were raising their virtual hands in the audience, so maybe we'll take some questions. I saw Nick Cormier had a question, so I'm going to let you ask.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I had, I guess, follow up on my question I asked in the Q&A. So my question was really pertaining to, I think in your maps you showed that people were also heading from Ramona down into the Escondido area. And I know that this rapid route, the intent of the rapid route is to more go from Ramona to Poway, but I think that if there is ever a need or a connection to planning wherever the endpoint is in Ramona, be it downtown somewhere, and then potentially having the North County Transit District I don't know if there's a bus already that runs up to Ramona or not from the Escondido Transit Center, but making that kind of connection between the transit centers on the north end as opposed to the Sabre Springs Transit Center, which would be in addition to this. I think that's kind of where my question was going. Just trying to make as many connections as possible, because as a former bus taker for a while, those connections are critical, especially in the North County area where they're kind of all over the place. So just wanted to clarify that.
I want to say, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I want to say there is a route that connects to the Escondido Transit Center. Just the frequency is very low through. Is there not, Mimi? Like I want to say it's like the 371 from NCTD, but we can definitely follow up on that question.
I can answer this question. So once you get to Sabre Springs, there's a number of opportunities to get to the Escondido Transit Center. There's a current rapid route that operates up and down the corridor, and that route is the 235. So it stops at Sabre Springs and will get you directly from Sabre Springs over to Escondido. And then we're also looking, as part of the regional plan, at significant service enhancements. There's a NCTD rapid route being planned, 371, that will also make that connection. So we're definitely thinking about all of those connections to get to Escondido, because we know it's, critical to get to the Sprinter and other routes inland.
Awesome, thanks for that. And then Robin Maxon had a question. She said that the Youth Opportunity Pass hasn't been super useful for rural youth. How soon will we bring this benefit to them? And Robin, I don't know if you wanted to raise your virtual hand so we can unmute you, so you could clarify what you mean by useful. Is it just because like lack of buses coming often enough to benefit rural youth? There you go. I just unmuted you.
Yeah, it's the Youth Opportunity Pass is it's a great program, and up here in Ramona we can't use it, so I keep hearing about it, being mentioned, and it's this wonderful thing that's happening, which it is, but it's definitely not universally being applied to the entire region. And Ramona's not that far away from Poway. I mean, we're up in the hill, but as far as miles traveled, we're very close. But there's no opportunity for the large amount of folks living here who don't want to traverse that Highway 67. They actually don't want to drive. They'd rather take something else. But that was really my question, is right now there's a very infrequent bus that does go down to Escondido really early in the morning and one later at night. And it's not something you normally see in our town. So there's really no opportunity for them to use the Opportunity Pass, and we want them to be able to use that. That was my background. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I will say about the Youth Opportunity Pass program that staff is seeking ways to renew that funding. So the hope would be, right, that program would continue when this bus becomes available to folks. And that's good feedback for us to think about. I'm the outreach person for the Youth Opportunity Pass program. And so that's good to think about in terms of outreach to the Ramona Unified School District when that bus route opens, so that kiddos know that they can take advantage of that program.
Yeah, and Ellie, if I can just add that, what Mimi said earlier is really important to know, is that we're looking at a phased approach on this route, so that we can figure out, it might not be the perfect solution, but as a near-term point-to-point service between Ramona and Poway, an option for this route that we can implement earlier. Probably have to be in traffic with everybody else, but we'll be looking at, what can we do to get everybody that access that you're talking about? Because, that's our primary consideration here, is providing those connections. And then we would phase into a much higher level of service over time. But yeah, that's definitely on our agenda, is to, what can we do very, very quickly to help get that service connection. So your comments are spot on there.
And I've also heard your comment and seen others in the chat about frequency and convenience. And the regional plan also includes frequency enhancements to all of the services across the region. Now, funding is going to be needed, right, to make those improvements. And there's not a source of funding currently identified, but that is something that we are actively working on, is bringing more resources to transit operations so we can increase those frequencies and make the service better for the communities.
Great. And we had a raised hand from Wes in the audience. Wes, I'm just going to unmute your microphone so you can ask. Ooh, Wes, if you see we're asking to unmute, you just click yes.
Is that better?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay. When you start the 277 project, when it's going to start to Ramona, and I ride the bus 944, 945, and bus 20 a lot, and there's no bus service on Sundays. When this project is done, will you be able to catch either the 944, 945 that goes to the Rancho Bernardo transit station, or to the over by the hamburger factory where the 945 ends, and where will you catch the 277 to the Ramona? And are you going to have future service? One of the cities that you mentioned, all these future rapid services and micro shuttles, will Forest Ranch be one of them that gets the future service? And what's it? And then the second part of the question: what's the difference between San Diego MTS that has their board meetings the second Thursday of every month at 9 o'clock, and what's it with bus, trolley, sprinter train, coaster kind of stuff? What's the difference between MTS and SANDAG? What you folks are for?
Whoa, okay, that was like 4 questions. But if people want to take a couple of those. Great.
Well, we can start with the last question, which was the difference between MTS and SANDAG. So SANDAG's the regional planning agency. We plan, we design, we build, but we don't operate the transit. MTS is the transit operator, and they are the transit operator for Central and South San Diego County and East as well. And the North County Transit District is the transit operator up in North County. There's 2 transit operators in the San Diego region. SANDAG covers the whole region, but we just do the planning, the funding, the design, and building of projects.
Yeah, and let me take the frequency question and the connection question. So I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Jennifer Williamson. I'm the Deputy Director of Mobility Planning at SANDAG. So we were looking at having 7-day service. That means, all week, every week, and looking at 10-minute all-day service. So that'll be quite an upgrade from what you see today with the 944, 945 that operates, just sporadically throughout the day, and there's very limited weekend, if any, weekend service. So we'll be providing that 7-day service to connect to that Poway Sabre Springs Transit Center. And there you can make a variety of connections to go up to Escondido or also into downtown San Diego.
Great. So it sounds like service on Sundays as well. Great. Awesome. And did we I think we answered all of Wes's questions on that front. And the last question we had was, with the phased approach, how soon do you project the first buses to roll?
I can take that. I don't know if Mimi's here, but I'd just say that, we're looking at a phased approach. So we'll have to acquire buses, and bus acquisition is kind of a lengthy process. So I hate to tell you that it's about 2 years to just acquire those buses. So between the planning and the acquisition of buses, our goal would be, 2 to 3 years to have this service out on the street. And again, that's pending funding. We don't have operations funding right now. And so we're working really hard with all of our funding partners to get that funding. But yeah, so the nearest term I would say is 2 to 3 years, and then we'll be constantly making improvements on the route from there on forward.
Yeah, really great questions that everybody had. Right now, I'm just checking into the chat to see if I missed anything.
Allie, I can get the next one from Jim. It looks like
Go for it.
Jim DeVay. So, as part of our region, we do have an obligation to go ahead and move towards electric buses. And it is very likely that we would be operating battery electric buses on this route. Or MTS would not be acquiring any additional new buses that wouldn't be that electric quality. And they're upgrading their whole system right now to transition to an electric vehicle. So I'm fairly certain, I cannot say with 100% certainty because there are other buses in the system right now that they could transition out. This will be a rather long route. But yeah, the new buses, any buses that we would procure would be electric at this point.
Great. And I think just the last question that I don't know if we explicitly answered from Wes about where you'll catch this 277 bus in Poway. So just to reiterate, where the stops are going to be, right? We'll still have to narrow that down. Everybody's sharing feedback about destinations that are important to you on the route is going to help us see where there's clusters of popular destinations to figure out where the stops might be put. And then we'll come back to all of you to get your opinions about the stops, potential stops that we'll be proposing later on. And somebody asked, would SANDAG or MTS be buying the buses? They said procurement, but I'm translating formal language. And there's a new bus company on the market called Solaris, if that's on your radar. Okay.
MTS does the procurement of their buses. Yeah.
Cool. Great. And so just in the interest of time, I know we're nearing the end, so I just wanted to make a quick plug for our survey, since it seems like we got to all of our questions, unless I missed anybody in the chat. Great. So the last thing I wanted to say is the survey I've been mentioning, that opened today, and that's going to be open until March 12th. So definitely let your community know. We dropped the link in the chat. We'll also be emailing everybody after this call a link to that survey. And if you want any blurbs to introduce what the survey is or graphics, because you work for a community organization that could share that on your social media, definitely let us know. Or if you had any other questions that we didn't get to on this call, definitely email us at rapid@sandag.org. And that's the general email that you could get a hold of us at for all of our rapid bus routes. And somebody mentioned, how can I learn about more of these meetings earlier? Here's our social media handles. You can find us SANDAG Region on Facebook and Instagram, or you can find us just SANDAG on X, or as I said, the rapid@sandag.org, or subscribe to our emails on our website. Well, we thank you guys for taking time out of your evening to chat with us, and we hope that all of you will be back to talk to us when we propose some potential routes and stops later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.